Thanks for putting me at ease.
Please. Please. This is easy, man. Welcome to the OnPar Podcast. I'm your host, Drew D'Alberto, here sitting in the beautiful Winners Award Group showroom studio in Coconut Creek. And today is going to be a little bit different episode. We're going to focus mainly on the Ryder Cup, which kicks off tomorrow. So, since I am not at all an expert in any way, shape, or form on the Ryder Cup, I brought in my good buddy Tim Campbell, and he is extremely excited. It's his favorite event. Thanks for being with us today, Tim, on the OnPar Podcast.
Drew, it's great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, where do you even want to start? Let's let you kind of drive here because I could ask a bunch of questions, but I'm just going to act like a guy who knows nothing because it's not much of an act. So, tell us first of all about the Ryder Cup and why we should be excited, or even half as excited as you are about it.
If you're half as excited as about this event as I am, boy, you're gonna have trouble sleeping tonight because you're gonna be that excited to wake up at 4 a.m. Eastern time to watch the guys tee off over at Marco Simone in Rome, in Italy. Look, this is my favorite golf event of the golf calendar. It's not played every year. It's held once every 2 years. The last event was in 2021. Before we dive in too far, let's explain sort of the format. This is a team of golfers from the United States of America competing against a team of golfers from countries in Europe. So you've got the United States, you've got Europe. Golf traditionally, as we know, more of an individual sport. The majors, that's must-see TV for me. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Masters, U.S. Open, British Open, PGA, and then following all the other events throughout the course of the year, predominantly individual event. This is much different. You've got these guys that are used to playing for themselves that are teaming up together for their country, or in Europe's case, for the continent, for the sake of beating the other. It's a very passionate event. There's a lot of excitement around this event. Think of it, you've also have the factor that you have to consider, you'll have the event that's hosted in the United States. 1 year, it rotates. So last Ryder Cup event was held in 2021 and Whistling Straits in Wisconsin, which means it's Europe's turn to host. This year it'll be held in Rome.
Awesome.
So as you can imagine, that'll be a very pro-European crowd compared to Whistling Straits 2 years ago. This is like a road game for the United States. This is a scene that is unlike many other in all of sports. I'm a huge sports fan, but from an atmosphere perspective, when you turn on your TV and these guys are going off the first tee tomorrow and tens of thousands of people are right on top of these guys going absolutely bananas. You think of golf, it's a very, the atmosphere is typically
buttoned up.
exactly that.
Not this.
You're going to have thousands of people going nuts, chanting USA, chanting European. I'm not sure what those sorts of chants are. Those Europeans over there, they do things a little differently, but it's certainly very easy to get the juices flowing.
Okay. All right, and you're a bit of a handicapping guy because you work with Gulfstream Park here in Hollywood or Hallandale, and how would you handicap this event with? I know there's captains of each team. Some of the slots are automatic. Some of them are handpicked. So talk to us about the USA team versus the European team, and give us a little bit of inside information because I know you've done a lot of research and you've been spending a lot of time on this.
This is a very interesting event, the way they build the teams. So both the USA and Europe have two teams of 12. The way they pick those 12 players, there's a point system that for this year's event helped them pick the first 6 players it's a merit-based system. Players accrued points over the 2 years before this event. So basically, from the moment one Ryder Cup concludes, they start earning points towards the next Ryder Cup event. And you can qualify for the event based on merit, based off earning enough points. If you're not one of those 6 golfers that qualified on points, you then have a way to get into the team by way of what's called a captain's choice. The captains for each, the USA and Europe, Zach Johnson for the US, and Luke Donald for Europe. They got to pick 6 players to fill out the rest of the team. Looking at this event from top to bottom, very fascinating. You look at the U.S. side. The U.S. is considered a favorite going into this event. If you look at the average world ranking of the U.S. team versus the Europe, you're going to have you have a lot more guys top to bottom. I think U.S. would definitely be considered deeper, just from a roster's perspective.
Okay.
But let's just quickly run down, if you want to rattle off
that's what I was
team
gonna
names.
do. I said, we saved the best for last. We're gonna keep USA for second. So I'll run down. You mentioned Luke Donald, European team's captain, and then you got Jon Rahm, who's one of my favorite golfers. I love the short backswing and all the power he generates. I love watching him in interviews because he's dynamic and he's funny. You got Rory McIlroy, of course, one of the best golfers, depending on the day, like we all are. You got Victor Hovland, who's been on a tear. Tyrrell Hatton. Matt Fitzpatrick, always up there on the leaderboard. Robert McIntyre. Those are the automatic qualifiers. And then the guys that Luke picked would be Tommy Fleetwood, great hair, great mullet. Sepp Straka, Justin Rose, Shane Lowry, another guy I like watching. I can't even put my finger on why. I just like watching Shane Lowry. Maybe it's the beard. Nikolai, and I'm going to butcher his name, Hodggaard maybe? I don't know. Ludwig Aberg. So yeah, as it gets down the list, the guys are lesser and lesser known, at least to the casual golf fan like myself. So, that's the European team. According to Sporting News that I'm reading the article right now. So, what's any insight on any of those guys that you want to share other than my cursory, I like watching that guy play or not?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the big names on that list. Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, 2 of the 3 best golfers, undisputed, on the planet.
Okay.
They had great seasons, Rory in particularly. Victor Hovland, another player who, over the course of the last couple months, the spotlight was really on him to have a massive breakout season this year. And not only did he do that, but he also won both the BMW Championship as well as the Tour Championship, the last event on the calendar. So this is someone who has essentially forced his way onto the podium, essentially, and is now in the conversation of best golfers in the world based off how he's played. This is a team top to bottom, if you compare it to the United States, not as experienced, not as deep. Quite frankly, if we're looking at this on paper, I don't think the European team has quite as much depth as the U.S. team does. However, this event, we sit here and we microanalyze the 6 captains' picks on both sides. It's very fascinating because so much goes into that process, so much goes into the decision-making for those captains over who are going to be the 6 guys that I choose to join this team. And much is made about who got picked and who didn't. Really, this event comes down to whose guys, whose dogs really show up and play great golf and bring home points for their team.
Got it.
I think looking back on this event on Sunday night, you look at the European team, how well did Rory McIlroy play? How well did Jon Rahm play? Victor Hovland? the way these guys play, I think really will tell you the story of how the European side looks. Comparing this team to Ryder Cup teams from the past 20 years or so, it looks a lot different. You've got a little more of a youth movement from the European side.
Okay.
A lot of rookies on this team. Ludwig Auber, Nikolai Hogard. These are guys that are 22, 23 years old that the average golf fan has never seen before. You've got Sepp Straka, who was playing in his first Ryder Cup, Robert McIntyre, compared to some of these guys that the average golfer might know that have been on this team. Sergio Garcia, Lee Westwood, Paul Casey. These are all just guys examples. They've been on every European Ryder Cup team. Ian Poulter, how could we forget?
Sure.
These guys creeping on up there in age, getting in their late 40s, which is old from a
golf perspective. From a perspective, for sure.
Yeah. So those are guys that, well, for one, weren't given the opportunity to qualify this year because each and every one of those guys that we mentioned went over to the dark side. They joined the Live Golf Tour,
yes,
which essentially, because of the way the DP World Tour, decided to handle things,
they couldn't get the points.
They weren't eligible to accrue Ryder Cup points.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the way.
That's it. These guys aren't going to be on this team, sure. So
unless they got picked, because now the merger, and it doesn't, maybe it doesn't matter anymore. So, all right, well, let's move on to the U.S. team. Our team, let's say. USA. You got Zach Johnson as the captain, you mentioned. Scotty Scheffler. If you're not a Scotty Scheffler fan, you're not watching golf. Wyndham Clark, Brian Harman, Patrick Cantlay, Max Homa, and Xander Schauffele, all automatic qualifiers based on points, like you just articulated. And then you got the picks. You got Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, Colin Morikawa, JT, Justin Thomas, and Sam Burns. All guys we've heard of if you watch golf at all, in the majors even, right? They're all guys you've heard of. So give us the rundown on and you said USA's team is better and deeper, so give us the rundown on the USA team, Tim.
Look, Scotty Scheffler, number one player in the world. He's the best iron player that we've seen since Tiger Woods.
All right.
He is the dog for the United States. He's unequivocally their best player. And again, as the same token can apply to the U.S., if Scotty Scheffler doesn't play well in this event, it's probably not a good harbinger for the U.S.'s chances of success.
Gotcha.
Beyond him, this team is really going to depend on Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, which we'll talk about the format and we'll talk about strategy in just a bit. These are two other guys that are in the top 10 of the world that have been in this event several times, were really big reasons that the team won so handily at the 2021 event in Whistling Straits. 19-9 was the final score. For those who are wondering and haven't Googled this already or didn't have a chance to watch the last event, Xander and Patrick, they play together typically. They're both California guys. Their games complement each other well, and for that reason, they're paired together. Really, those are the three guys that I think are going to drive the success of the American team. Interestingly, because of the way the point system changed, which we won't get into the weeds on that.
Yeah, nobody cares.
They really emphasized performance in the majors this year. So, Wyndham Clark, Brian Harman, two guys that are Ryder Cup rookies. They both won their first majors this year, which essentially guaranteed them a spot on this team. I am fascinated to see how they're going to be utilized over the course of Friday and Saturday for this event.
So you got to back up a step because I don't really understand how this format is different. I mean, it's obviously not a charity scramble like the one we're playing in on October 9th for the first tee. But give me the idiot-proof version of the format and explain it to me like I'm a 10-year-old and I have no idea.
Let's be very basic, right?
Basic, yes.
Both teams have 12 players.
Roger that.
Friday and Saturday, there are 2 sessions of golf. In the morning, they'll play what's called foursomes. We can call that alternate shot.
Okay.
There will be 4 teams of 2 for the European side that compete against 4 teams of 2 from the American side. Each team, one player will tee off on the odd numbered holes. Mm-hmm. The other player in that team will tee off on the even numbered holes. And from there, the partners will take turns hitting the ball, shot by shot until the hole is done. Now, this is match play. So one European team is competing against one American team at a time. Match play meaning rather than the European side parred the hole for a 4, the American team birdied for a 3, we're 1 stroke ahead. This is going to be broken down by holes won rather than strokes.
Okay. More like a skins match, but except they're doing alternate shot.
Right. They're doing alternate shot. If you win the hole, you're not up by strokes. You're up by the number of holes.
Right. Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
I hope that's making sense to our listeners.
And that's where the strategy that you were alluding to a minute ago comes in, when you have to pick guys that can complement each other's game. And I can see where it appeals to you as a cerebral guy and an analytical guy, where you're looking at it going, okay, well, if this guy can hit his driver and then this guy can get him out of the woods if he missed it or whatever, then, and then hopefully the guy you want with the putter in his hand is the guy that has the putter in his hand, essentially.
Exactly. You want to put guys, you want to team guys together that their games suit one another, because there's always the consideration of, hey, is this player a good fit for the golf course? So ideally, and this is why the team construction is so fascinating, there's so many different components to what goes into building a great Ryder Cup team. Mm-hmm. It's not just, we want to take the most talented golfers on paper and just roll them out like the dream team.
Got it. It's almost more like the Miracle on Ice team, where they said they weren't looking for the best players, they're looking for the right players.
Right. There's some element of that, but you also, surely you want players that have played on the biggest stage, guys that, have been successful in majors, and, based off the point system, that, these are going to be guys that have had success there. Mm-hmm. But chemistry is so important to this event as well. You want a group of guys that, like each other, quite frankly. Yeah. You want guys that, Tim and Drew, you can throw them on the golf course,
and they're going to have a great time and play better than usual. Even though we're not great golfers, we're going to play better than usual because we're, having a nice time out there and enjoying ourselves.
They are going to help bring out the best in one another, and their games are going to lift the other. When one player hits a bad shot, the other player knows he can righten the ship, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And these guys will just complement one another over the course of the round. Okay. So there's that element to it as well. Like you said, it's a loaded potato when you look at this event as a whole, and from a team perspective. I don't think I finished explaining the format.
You didn't.
There's so much to this event. We're going all over the place.
I'm sorry. Go back to the format. That's
so you've got alternate shot in the morning, 4 teams of 2. You're competing for 4 points. So each match, there's 1 point.
It's worth a point. Okay.
There are ties in that event. The 2 teams half the point. In the afternoon, there will be 4 teams of 2 on each side that compete in the format called 4-ball, which we can call best ball.
Best ball, sure.
Team A, the European team, let's say Jon Rahm and Rory McIlroy are playing against Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. Okay. Rory McIlroy pars the hole for a 4. Jon Rahm birdies the hole for a 3. Xander Schauffele birdies the hole for a 3. Patrick Cantlay pars the hole for a 4. In that scenario, the European team would put down a 3 on the scorecard, and the American team would put down a 3 on the scorecard. And in that scenario, it's a half. That format, you're really looking for guys who can put birdies up in bunches. And so, again, competing for 1 point per match. So Friday, foursomes in the morning, 4-ball in the afternoon. On Saturday, you've got foursomes again in the morning, 4-ball in the afternoon.
Okay.
So that's 8 points on Friday, 8 points on Saturday that we're playing for.
Right.
And then on Sunday, the grand finale, 12 singles matches, where every player on the team will compete against another player from the opposite side.
Okay.
Heads up, 1 point per match. And that's how the Ryder Cup's decided.
Okay.
It's a total of 28 points over the course of 3 days. And the winner of the previous cup, so the U.S. is the defending champion, for them to retain the cup, they have to score 14 points over that 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
For Europe to win the cup back, they have to score 14 and a half points.
Okay. It's a little complicated, but I think it's going to be fun to watch based on what you just told me. So I'm going to actually tune in now. You convinced me, Tim. So let me ask you this. Do you have a ritual, since this is your favorite golf event of the year? I mean, do you have a certain food that you eat? Do you get up at 3 a.m. and like get ready for this? Do you watch it at a specific venue? Peel back the
it's
onion
interesting
for
because this is a European Ryder Cup,
You're not going to
and
be in Rome.
I unfortunately won't be in Rome.
Okay.
2 years from now, fast forward to 2025.
Yep.
It'll be here before we know it.
New York.
The U.S. will host this event at Bethpage Black. Maybe the two of us in the Chiaras can make our way up there.
I don't think they'd be hard to convince. Lou and Nick are pretty easy. You just twist their arm a little and golf is involved. They might be okay.
I was heartbroken for Nick Chiara. He's telling me before we shoot this that he actually is going to be in Rome the day before the Ryder Cup starts.
Right.
He had a pre-planned family trip to Italy and will come ever so close to being right there at Marco Simone without actually attending the event.
Nobody's perfect. What can you do? Sorry, Nick. So, but getting back, you dodged my question a little bit, Tim. So come on, answer the question.
You can tell I'm a podcast rookie. The host has to keep the newbie under his thumb.
Just answer my question. I'm glad that you brought it up because it's always fun to take a shot at Nick for being that close and not going. So kudos to you for that. Now answer the question.
No ritual necessarily, because with this being a European Ryder Cup, they'll start play very early on the East Coast. 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So we'll be setting the alarm. I'm a lunatic. I'm a lunatic.
Early riser. I'll flip it on while I'm drinking my coffee.
I'm like you. I'm early to bed, early to rise. I'll just set the alarm clock a little early.
Okay.
Get out of bed, enjoy my coffee, and hopefully enjoy the U.S. team building an early lead against those Europeans.
But you're not working that Friday, right? Like tomorrow, I shouldn't say that.
If the bosses see this, yes, officially I will be working.
Yes, he's at work, bosses.
I'll be working, but we'll be watching each and every shot of this event. Look, this is, college football is one of my great and most profound loves.
TVs at Gulfstream, so it's fine.
Exactly, you're right. We can walk and chew gum at the same time while having golf over on the side TV. But college football, it's that time of year. Anyone who knows me knows what a great passion I have for that sport. I love this event, Drew, so much that this is one of the few events that could get me
away from
college football for one Saturday. Okay. Now, the great thing about it being in Europe is that this Saturday, will look like an early wake-up call, watch golf, morning session, afternoon session. By the time that's wrapping up, it should be about the time college football kicks off. Perfect. So that'll be one of the best days of the year, at least if you ask me.
There you go. There you go. Okay, so it's not like the Masters where you're making egg salad sandwiches and wearing a fake green jacket or anything like that. Right? It's just a regular day from an eating perspective. And are there any specific other things that you do on Saturday other than watch from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then watch college football till midnight?
Look, this is an event that comes Sunday. As an American, someone who's always been very passionate about, team sports, anytime you get that red, white, and blue involved and you're competing against some other part of the world.
So you're an Olympics fan too, huh?
I'm a big fan of the Olympics.
All right.
And think of that except on a, the truly elite professionals that are playing for your side.
Right.
Compared to the a lot of the sports at the Olympic stage this day and age don't have like the truly elite of the elite competing in that sport.
Well, here's another did you know about the Ryder Cup that you may know but our listeners may not. So in 2021 when the PGA did the Ryder Cup rings for the winners, do you know who they called to make those rings?
I believe those guys are sitting right around the corner.
It's Winners Award Group here in Coconut Creek. So just to show our listeners, I'm going to step off camera real quick because we actually have the sample rings, and I think you might have seen these before. But these are actually the Ryder Cup rings for the U.S. from 2021. So I don't know if you want to go ahead and take that out and put it on, and this could be like a real treat for a guy like you that really loves the Ryder Cup. But it's pretty cool that we're sitting in the showroom of the company that had the Ryder Cup rings designed and made for the winners last year. I think that's awesome.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, I think when I first met them earlier this year, that was one of the first topics that came up in conversation,
right,
and my jaw hit the floor. I'd said, "What? No way! Ryder Cup."
We were here together. I was sitting right next to you when Lou and Nick were telling us that.
Right here in this showroom.
Right here in this showroom. So, well, listen, Tim, this has been great. I mean, if there's anything else you want to kind of close on or plug your company or any events, we'd love to hear that. And then I want to close out with just kind of a little bit of a betting angle after that. If you're a betting man or if you want to have any thoughts on how I might put a couple bucks on this to make it more interesting. But before we do that, what do you got for us? You want to go ahead and tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you or plug any events or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gulfstream, maybe?
Yeah, so my full-time role, I work for First, which is the company that owns Gulfstream Park. So I'm in the horse racing space. My particular role, I'm involved with selling Pegasus World Cup, which is the marquee event, the Super Bowl, the Ryder Cup of the Gulfstream lineup over the course of the year. It's an event that you do not want to miss if you're based here in South Florida and you enjoy great events. If you've come down to the track before, if you like to wager, or even if you don't like to, or you're new to it, get in touch with me. We can talk about getting you to this year's Pegasus, which is at the end of January.
Right after the PGA show.
Right after
which
the PGA show.
Driving home Saturday morning after the PGA show and go straight to the track.
Yes.
All right.
What a great way to do both. Yeah, well, I'm sure that my info we'll toss that out some point in the podcast.
And his name is Tim Campbell. So how about, I know you can handicap horse racing, or at least you try to. What about handicapping the Ryder Cup? I mean, I'm sure there's all different types of ways to bet on the Ryder Cup. As far as prop bets and this person versus that person, like, do you have any advice for me as a guy who's like, oh yeah, I'll probably watch that now and maybe hang out with you and watch it? What do you say?
This is a tricky event to bet. You look at on paper, 1 to 12, the U.S. team has more talent. We have more depth. We have less question marks. However, one really important tidbit that you can't forget, we are playing this event on European soil. You want to take a guess at the last time the U.S. won this event on European soil, Drew?
Won the Ryder Cup in Europe, somewhere in Europe. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say like 1952 or something ridiculous. I'm guessing. I don't know.
As someone that's watched this event a long time, it
long.
feels that long.
Not,
like
okay.
1993.
Okay.
Since the last time the United
years.
States beat Europe in the Ryder Cup. So keep in mind, to put this in golf fans' perspective, that I think we can all it will sink in and really weigh on us what kind of drought we're talking. That was 4 years before Tiger won the Masters. So we had one of the, if not the greatest player of all time, the greatest if you ask me, the entire time during his tenure as, during the career that he had, during Phil Mickelson's career, with Europe. Those two guys at our disposal, the U.S. was not able to win a Ryder Cup on Europe's soil. Wow. On Europe's soil.
That's so wild.
You look at I don't have the exact odds sitting in front of me, but sure. The U.S. is, Vegas considers the U.S. a slight favorite in this event. I think you can probably pick the U.S. to win lane, 150 to win 100 back.
All right. Let's see what they got. Who is favored in the Ryder Cup? So Team
minus
USA
139.
Is minus 139, and Europe is only plus 119. So it's really not that big of a favorite, especially considering we haven't won in 40 years in Europe.
You look at the event the last time it was played, 2 years ago here on American soil. It was an absolute bloodbath.
Okay.
Top to bottom, the U.S. boat raced the European team.
19-9 seems like a slaughter, especially explaining the points, how you score the way you did. Go ahead.
But that was a home game for the Americans.
Right.
That's tens of thousands of Americans going nuts, cheering for you up and down the course from Friday through Sunday.
And now they're cheering against you.
Now they're going to be cheering for the Europeans. And again, there's been so much turnover on the rosters for both the Americans and the Europeans. It's hard to bet against Europe in this event.
Got it.
With that in mind, the last couple Ryder Cups, unfortunately, I think when you turn on the TV on Sunday for this event, what we're all hoping for is some intrigue. You want to see a close match where the outcome is up in the air. And that hasn't happened in the last several Ryder Cups. The outcome's been pretty set in stone. It's been pretty obvious, by early Sunday, which team was going to win, if not sooner.
Okay.
I think this is going to be the year that we really have some major drama coming down the stretch, and the outcome is a coin flip.
Interesting.
I think this is going to come down to a couple matches late. I think you're looking at a final score of something like 15-13.
I mean, that would be one of the closest ones ever, I presume.
It's about as close as it can get. 14.5 to 13.5. 14 to 14. By definition, they can tie in that event. The U.S. would retain the cup as the defending champion.
What a freaking shame that would be to see a tie after 3 days of golf. That makes me mad as a sports fan. That's they wouldn't have a playoff or something.
That would be a little air out of the balloon. Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
Now, someone who bet on a tie would be really happy because the tie is plus 1,200. So you could bet $100 and win $1,200. But obviously the odds are long against. Well, I mean, do you know when the last time there was a tie, or have there ever been a tie?
I don't. Okay. I know it's happened before. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that's basically it, Tim. I really appreciate your time and insight, and we'll have you back again anytime to talk about any other businesses in Gulfstream, and maybe plug the Pegasus again. Although you're gonna be sold out with 2 weeks to spare, as you always are. So. Get your tickets early, and really appreciate you, Tim. Thanks so much, man, and Thank you, listeners. We'll see you next Thursday with another episode of the OnPar Podcast. And that's why we don't need to edit it.